Thanks, everybody. Yes, let's get started.
Good evening.
Thank you.
This is Joanette Coogan in Minneapolis. We have Hannah Sherpan in Hermitage, Pennsylvania.
Hi, everyone.
And Barb Lagoni, sometimes in Chicago and now currently in Cerritos, California.
Somewhere in California, right.
Coming to us this evening near LA. And we have an extremely critically important topic we're going to be discussing with you this evening about diabetes and defeating it and how people can live really long, productive, healthy lives if they do things even after they've been diagnosed. And this whole diabetes it's an epidemic. It is just huge, and it's really, I find it really frightening. 25, almost 26 million children and adults in the U.S. have diabetes. 18.8 million of those are diagnosed. 7 million undiagnosed, and then this is even worse. 79 million are pre-diabetic, which means they'll move into that other column if they don't take some positive steps, be proactive in doing some things to prevent themselves from falling into the diabetic category. And then 2 million new cases diagnosed every year to 20-year-olds. And then children, 215,000 new cases in children and adolescents. That means 1 out of every 400 children are diabetic, and it's just, these are numbers that we cannot be proud of. They are numbers that we really need to face realistically and then say, we're going to change this, because adult onset diabetes is now a childhood disease, and the rates are expected to double by 2050. I mean, this is truly what is called an epidemic. And I said to Barb, leave this chart in, because to me this just a picture graph. Now it says 23.6 million of the number of Americans with diabetes here, and I just said it was 25.8, which is higher, and that's because the 25.8 is a more current number. But if you even we look at some of these other things, emergency room costs attributed to diabetes every year, 3.9 billion. Well, it's no wonder our healthcare system is really out of whack.
So broken, yeah.
Yeah. And good control of blood glucose will decrease eye, kidney, and nerve disease by 25%. And to me, that also is just huge. And lower limb amputations of diabetics per year, 71,000. I mean, we're not talking a handful of people here. These statistics are huge numbers. So we want to really take a close look here at what diabetes does to the body in terms of increasing our risks for other diseases. Hannah?
And thanks, Joe. When we say double by 2050, one of the statistics I saw said it actually will be by 2020. So we were going on the conservative side, but even at 2050, that would be horrendous. So one of the reasons is dramatically increasing, I think, is because of what we're going to be talking about this evening, which is a lot of preventable issues, because heart disease and high blood pressure and stroke and blindness, kidney disease, poor circulation, amputations, we probably are all aware that those are related very often to diabetes. But these are the things that really get me. When you think that people who have diabetes, in addition to this, how much faster they're going to become ill with such problems as cardiovascular disease. 15 years earlier normally. A 50-year-old with diabetes is going to die on the average 6 years earlier than a counterpart without diabetes. And, of course, this is really sad. A 10-year-old with diabetes will die on average 19 years earlier than a counterpart with diabetes. And, to think this is going to be, in many cases, still preventable, which, of course, was going to be our emphasis tonight, and that's the positive part of all this statistics that are kind of sad and scary. Okay, Joe? So what are some of the symptoms of diabetes? Well, first of all, when I went through this, I thought, oh, sometimes this happens to me, sometimes this happens. And, I think that we all start looking at that, but it's when you have a number of them and they are recurring. Certainly, you want to check into it. If you're having blurry vision, of course, we can't wait on something like that. But any of these, increased thirst or the need to urinate, feeling tired or ill, recurring skin, gum, or bladder infections, dry, itchy skin, unexpected weight loss, slow healing cuts or bruises, loss of feeling in the feet or tingling feet are all major symptoms that we want to address, certainly. Okay?
Yeah, not fun stuff.
And by the way, if any of you found that slide looking blurry, it's not your eyes. Don't
but
panic.
Maybe you did that purposely.
Yeah, right.
But, you know, it's when you look at the statistics, you know, as we're going to talk about with type 1, they still don't know a lot of the causes for that. But type 2, we do know is very often preventable, and also many times people can be restored to good health. So when you look at the statistics that 90% are type 2 and only 10% are type 1, that means prevention and working with diet and everything can make a major difference. But it's very exciting to realize, as you'll hear, that very often type 1 diabetics are going to get great results as well by doing just some simple, right, healthy things. Right, Barb?
So we are going to attempt to explain the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes, and we're going to give you a little bit of biochemistry here. So to help us understand why there are these horrendous side effects that come from having diabetes. And a lot of it stems from, some of the illnesses come from the fact that blood sugars go up, and we'll show you that in just a second. Blood glucose, that's what blood sugar is. And it sticks to proteins that are in the bloodstream, and that's what contributes to kidney disease and nerve damage. And then if you'll click, Joe.
Sorry.
I know we keep clicking all along here. And then when blood sugar goes up, free radicals go up, I'll show you that, and inflammation all increase when you have diabetes or high blood sugars, and then that's all associated with cataract formation and loss of vision, kidney damage we mentioned above, and blood vessel damage, which means high blood pressure, triglycerides rise, the good cholesterol. So you begin to see the connections when you once you click, and I'll show them a little bit how this works. So in type 1 diabetes, which we don't talk about as much because, as Hannah just showed you, that's more like in the 10% range of the population. But if you start where the pancreas is, there in the center, and in type 1 diabetes, that's an autoimmune disease, the pancreas isn't working. It's not producing insulin. And so now you don't have insulin in the that's going into the bloodstream. Now, what does insulin do? Well, it's a carrier for that glucose. The only way glucose, which is the energy source of the cells, gets into the cells is via insulin. So insulin has to carry that glucose through the bloodstream and into the cells. Make sense? Mm-hmm. But when you have type 1 diabetes, you don't have the insulin. So you got the glucose coming into the bloodstream, but you don't have anything to clear it. Make sense? And so, yeah, you've got too much blood sugar, too much glucose that is in the bloodstream and not enough insulin to put it into the cells. So the muscles are unable to use any glucose, and then you get this glycogen protein breakdown, and they call that ketoacidosis. You don't remember that, except that's a bad thing. And that leads to, but that's where you get these free radical damage to the cell and all these other cellular damage. So then let's look at the next slide.
Ooh.
Which is, yes. Who's that?
It's Jackie.
Jackie. Okay, we'll be with you in 1 minute. Thanks. Well, at least we can hear you. Okay, so this now is type 2 diabetes, and that's what the majority of folks are. They're 85 to 90% of diabetics are type 2 diabetics. And in these folks, they still have a pancreas that is still producing insulin, but when the insulin arrives at the cells don't open. They're resistant. That's where the term insulin resistance comes from. And so the cell doesn't open to receive the glucose, so what's the end result? Too much glucose in the bloodstream. So if you look at number 1, the stomach, you see where the number 1 is at the top, converts food to glucose. So when we eat bread, when we eat pasta, when we eat crackers, when we eat sugar, when we eat refined carbs, the stomach breaks that down into the simplest molecule of blood glucose. And then the glucose comes in the bloodstream, and then in response to that, the pancreas produces insulin. That part's working. the part that isn't working is getting into the cells. That's where it breaks down. Okay, click. And here's another illustration of the difference between, you've got type 1 is on the of the normal process. It would be the glucose and the insulin both pouring into the bloodstream and both of them going into the cell. But when you have insulin resistance, you've got the insulin showing up, see the yellow insulin showing up and the blue glucose showing up, and none of it's getting into the cells, very little. Okay, click. So that helps us understand a little bit about what is going on internally with it. Okay, whose slide is this?
I believe that's
Yours.
Oh, mine. Okay, because that wouldn't be revealed to me until I get to the bottom of the slide. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So
It may not be there either.
And it may not. Okay. Okay. So the main thing just to know on this slide is that insulin is the hormone that controls the blood sugar. It is the key that allows glucose into the cells and that lowers blood glucose levels. That's probably all we need to know here. Okay, go ahead, Joe. Just click through there. That's just a review. So type 1,
Right.
pancreas no longer produces insulin. Type 2, it's producing it, but the insulin and the glucose cannot get into the cells. Okay.
Okay. So Jackie, we're ready to hear your story.
Hi, Jackie. Thanks for joining us. And so Steve Cheney told us about Jackie Fiala, and Jackie had just received this really significant award from the Harvard School that studies diabetes, and it was rewarding her for having survived type 1 diabetes for 50 years with good health. And so we asked her if she would just tell us a little bit about her story, about the type of health challenges that most type 1 diabetics have. And here she is 50 years later, and she doesn't have any of them. So thanks, Jackie.
Well, very happy to be here, and thank you. I'm really here to give hope to any diabetic, and in particular type 1 diabetics, who aren't looking at a cure yet, although they're working very hard on that. I discovered it when I was age 11 after going into a coma, and actually my parents discovered it, and they spent almost a month with me in the hospital learning how to manage my diabetes, taking shots, and testing at that time urine instead of blood sugar, and learning how to eat the proper foods. And so it was quite a shock at first, but I decided to get on the bandwagon and wasn't going to let it bring me down. And not quite sure when that happened, but I'm very fortunate that I loved exercise, particularly sports, and that has been one great saving grace for me. And then I'm also very fortunate that less than 20 years with the disease, I met somebody who introduced Shaklee to me and helped me give me the best nutrition possible for my health and my circulation and all the things that can go wrong as a result of diabetes.
So let me ask you, Jackie, at the time that you were introduced to the Shaklee products, how was your health at that point?
I think I thought I was doing okay, and I was still very active, and that was certainly helping me a lot. But I don't think I was as conscientious. I never had a vitamin in my life, and I don't think I was as conscientious about what it could do for me to help. And my blood sugars were not excellent at that time, and so I think an awareness came about as a result of working with people in Shaklee. And also, I think it definitely helped, my whole circulation and bloodstream and heart and eyes, because my eyes still, they find very little evidence that I have diabetes in my eyes, and that's a typical place to find it in a diabetic. So
and that's 50 years later.
52 now.
52 years later.
That's great.
Wow.
Yep.
Wonderful.
That's what. Why don't you click, Joe, and to the next slide? And so, Jackie, these are some of the products that you take. And more recently, you said that you had taken the Shaklee 180, the weight loss program, and you had lost some weight with that. Tell us about that.
Well, one thing that you have to do as a type 1 diabetic, I mean, all diabetics have to watch the carbohydrates that they consume. But for type 1, it's critical. You need to know how much so that you know how much insulin to give yourself. And I am fortunate now to be on an insulin pump, so it's very easy to take the number of carbohydrates that you have and put that into your pump, which is already set up so that it will give you the right amount of insulin according to what you're eating. And so it's very easy to have a smoothie every morning for breakfast because I know I'm getting the best possible protein and nutrition. Plus, because of that protein, it helps you, you know, maintain and improve your metabolism. So I shed 16 pounds over about six to 8 months, and it stayed that way ever since. And nobody really thought I was overweight, but I knew that my sizes were changing before I did that. So I've lost. I think that was pretty much 6 size. Well, I went from a size 10 down to a size 4.
Holy cow!
Wow,
yeah.
That's great.
And and you know, people say, "Gee, I want to be like that now." But
you see,
helpful.
well, what is significant about that is that for those of you who may not be familiar with that product, is the Shaklee 180 smoothies have 23 grams of protein and 6 grams of fiber. Those are the two elements that stabilize blood sugar. And that's why that is a nearly perfect food for a diabetic, and it is low glycemic. And so diabetics do very well on that because it doesn't spike their blood sugar. And because of the leucine that's in it, this amino acid that helps the body repair and rebuild muscle, when you see, more important than the 16 pounds is going down how many dress sizes is that? 4 dress sizes, because that's the fat. And as you'll see as we go along, it's the fat that creates a lot of the health issues around diabetes. So that was a very smart thing to do. And then what about some of these other supplements?
Well, it does look like I'm taking an awful lot, but it's really not that hard to put together. Mostly because I have the Vitalizer now, which has a lot of these nutrients in it, and that's a very
80. I think it's 80 different nutrients in it, right?
Complete and very easy to take. But I also took the cholesterol reduction complex when my doctor was saying diabetics have to keep theirs lower than everybody else. They want the LDL to be around 70, and so I decided to try the cholesterol reduction complex because I didn't want to take any statins, and I had already tried to cut out things that might raise cholesterol. And I actually lowered my LDL by 30 points without any medicine.
Wow.
And now, because of that, my HDL is higher than my LDL now. And my doctor
excellent.
That's really
incredible. And so especially for diabetics, that's excellent.
Yeah, and if anybody doesn't know what those are, the HDL is the good cholesterol, and the LDL is the not so good cholesterol. And then diabetics are typically they lose flexibility in their joints, and I was having some stiffness in my back, and it was hard to get up in the morning because of that. And over time, the Joint Health Complex has greatly improved my flexibility and eased my getting out of bed in the morning. So I'm really ready to go now.
And that's the glucosamine product that also contains the boswellia that helps reduce inflammation, and that is a big issue for diabetics, which we'll show you in a minute. So excellent. We're just delighted how well you have done on this program, and you've been on this program then 30-some years?
Just a little over 30 years, yeah.
That's terrific.
That's great. Yeah.
Well, let's continue then and look at how some of these supplements have helped people with diabetes, like Jackie. What's interesting about the type 2 diabetes is it is largely preventable, and there are certain attributes in lifestyle that we know contribute to diabetes. One is low physical activity, poor diet, especially diets that most diabetics are highly addicted to carbs, to sugar, to bread, to pasta, to potatoes, and there's a whole lot of us who are in that category who aren't diabetics yet. Smoking, of course, high alcohol use, and then the BMI, our waist circumference, the body mass index, when we're a higher percentage of fat, that is setting up an environment that makes diabetes a real possibility. And I found this this diagram about the Coca-Cola, just one can a day increases your chance of diabetes by 20%. It is a major contributor, not just Coke, but soda pop in general. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so it's preventable, just to make it really easy. You know, Dr. Daggy, who is the Chief Scientific Officer, spoke this weekend in Chicago, as did Dr. Jamie McManus, who is the Medical Director at Shaklee. And, you know, when you tick through and see all the terrible really side effects of diabetes that people endure, you know, the poor circulation and the amputations and the eyesight loss and the kidney problems and the liver problem and all these things that we're just ticking through, and you think about, there really are just three very simple things, you know, easy to do and easy not to do. And eating healthy, which means, you know, really moving away from those carbs and moving into the vegetables. You kind of hear that, those of you who join us a lot on Monday nights, is, you know, that's just everybody in the United States really need to work on that. And then exercise, and we know that that's something you got to kind of plan for. It doesn't just happen. Most of us have fairly sedentary lives, especially because of computers and screens and so on. And then losing weight, not that hard to do. So we're going to show you how we can attack that in a very easy way. Click.
I think we already did this slide.
Okay, click.
Sorry about that.
Where'd that one show up from? Okay.
Okay, I think this is Hannah's.
Right. Well, how does that disease actually progress? You know, as Barb said, all those causes, that what happens is the high blood levels of sugar and fat, especially saturated fat, are stored in the body, and not just in our fat tissue either. In fact, excess fat in our adipose tissue, which is your fatty tissue, causes inflammation. And, you know, they're finding more and more, aren't they, about how inflammation is a cause of so many diseases in the body, increased risk of cancer. And a lot of people don't think of it being associated with that, but they are finding that. And then, of course, all the itises, the arthritis, bursitis, and so on, autoimmune diseases, everything from lupus and fibromyalgia and MS. And when there's excess fat in the muscle, liver, and pancreas, then that's when the insulin resistance starts. There's elevated blood sugar levels. Our triglycerides, cholesterol, and blood pressure can increase. And all of those are causes and lead to diabetes, which then leads to heart disease and stroke, certainly increased, as we talked about in one of the very first slides. So the consequences of these metabolic changes is the glucose levels rise. And what happens is the glucose actually sticks to the proteins, glycosylation we call it, and that contributes to kidney disease and nerve damage. You know, there are many diabetics that have to wind up going on dialysis, and of course the neuropathy, the nerve damage is very often the case, and in fact diabetic retinopathy when it affects their eyesight as well. So blood sugar and free radicals and inflammations all increase, which again increase the risk of loss of vision through the neuropathy, and the cataract formation is a lot more frequent, a lot sooner. And then, of course, the kidney damage. Blood vessel damage is common as well. So that's why we say it's such a serious ailment. When you think of all the consequences, it's just incredible.
So let's talk about solutions. And the first one, which is a major contributor to diabetes, is our obesity and overweight epidemic. And if you'll just click on that, Joe, that should come up. And so maintaining an ideal body weight is one of the best things that we could do. But we get that that's not an easy thing. We get that because of what's happening in our in the supermarket. Is we are tempted by so many things that come out of boxes and are processed. I was on the, sorry to tell you about when we were starting our call tonight, that I was on the airplane coming out here next to a gentleman, a really nice man, has 2 kids in college, and he very overweight, and he told me about how he had lost weight one time and lost 50 pounds and then gained it all back. And then he lost 30 pounds, and then he gained that all back. And then he said, you know, it's pretty discouraging. And then he told me about his son, who is in college, 21 years old, who is they give so much money for his budget, and so he eats virtually 3 meals a day at McDonald's on something that he called dollar meals. So I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure what that is, but as he described it, so I was telling him about the Vivek study about the college kids who had eaten this very high-fat breakfast that was 900 calories, I think it was, and it was those sausage, cheese, biscuit breakfast. I don't know what they call them, but they look like a little sandwich, and then fried potatoes and something else was next to it. Anyway, but they're cheap. And so he said that's how he kept on a budget. And I said, gosh, you know, and then he said for lunch, then he would go and they get something called a double something. I assumed it was some kind of a hamburger thing. And then I forgot what he said. By that time, you know, I got the picture. And no vegetables whatsoever. Now he's 21 years old. And I said, gosh, you know, I'm concerned about, you know, that could really impact his health in a very serious way. And he said, yeah, he already has some intestinal stuff. And I said, well, you know, that could be serious. That could be Crohn's. He said, yeah, they've already told him he may have Crohn's. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you know. And so you know, I bring that up because, you know, we just need to be reminded how seriously dangerous these fast-fried, fat-filled foods are. We just really need to eliminate them from the diet. And if you need, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you say that they say they were cheap, actually, that's extremely costly.
Because of the medical costs that will come as a result. That's just what I was thinking. And so watch your portion size. Do you know that the dinner plates today are almost twice the size that they were 25 years ago? And so buy smaller plates and use smaller plates and stay away from those things. And then we'll tell you about the Shaklee 180 program a little bit more that Jackie followed. And then exercise. Now, we all know exercise is good, but for a diabetic, it improves that insulin uptake that reduces the insulin resistance. And that is a really important thing. And then, Jill, maybe you want to tell that exercise, or did we do that was that in the pre-call about Harley Pasternak?
Yeah, in the pre-call we were talking about, but he was saying that he's a celebrity trainer and very well renowned for his work with people on exercise. He was saying that if you sit for 1 hour a day, it reduces you have a shorter life by 28 minutes.
Woo.
For every hour, right? So
yeah.
I mean, it's really important for us to understand that. And for a diabetic, these things are even more critical. So here's the diet. And you know what? You can get very elaborate about the diet and you know, look at the different charts. But honestly, if you just remember 2 things, you want to lose the carbs and the refined stuff and put in the fresh vegetables. If you just get that do that much, you will dramatically, do you know, about a year ago I worked with that gentleman who was 400 pounds, and he was diabetic, remember, and he ate like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches all day, and pop was pretty much his diet. And it scared him enough. He had so many health problems. Anyway, he started the next day. He went to the store and for the first time bought fresh vegetables and started eating those, and then the Shaklee 180 shakes. And within 5 days, his blood sugars went down to normal. And the reason I'm telling you that is those of you who may be diabetic, when you go on that Shaklee 180 program, it's very important to monitor your blood sugar levels, because they can
drop.
It's amazing how the body loves the good healthy food. Be careful about fruit. Fruit is great, but most fruits are high glycemic. The berries are the best ones, the blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, all those. But the other ones can spike your blood sugar, and then, of course, lean protein. And then the supplements. We're going to tick through a number of them, but I just want to mention here Omega Guard, these omega-3 fatty acids. They are so important. They reduce inflammation, which we showed you earlier, that is caused by the diabetes, and they decrease the insulin resistance. So those are terribly important. B vitamins. Go ahead.
We have a consumer that came in. I want to tell you this about Omega Guard, because she called up so excited, and I said, called her back. She said, call me, and I called her back, and she said, I am so excited. I have hair on my legs again. Oh. And I'm thinking,
that was a good thing.
Most of us really are happy when we don't have to shave. But she said, I didn't have circulation enough to even be able to grow hair on my legs. And my circulation is back.
Oh, my golly. Well, so that's why I put the vitamin E there also, which helps with circulation, and then B vitamins for the nerves and the blood sugar regulation. Jackie mentioned, how good her circulation is and how she didn't have any neuropathy, but, the tingling in the feet, but that is a wonderful thing. And then vitamin C for healing and good immunity. And that's the other thing Jackie said, is she heals really well. Okay, click.
Which is terrific.
I'm sorry.
Click. There we go. Okay, so the Shaklee 180 program is a really ideal place to start. So even if you are even 10 pounds overweight, by losing even 10 pounds, it impacts your blood sugars in a very positive way. Can you click again? And so this program is just shows how it builds lean muscle mass, and you lose the fat. That's really how it's designed. I think I talked about it earlier. It contains leucine that helps the body repair and rebuild muscle, and it has the protein and the fiber to stabilize your blood sugar, plus all the nutrients. It also has a very nice, you can click again, Joe, called a metabolic boost that increases your metabolism by about 30%. So it's just excellent. And what those charts show is just how much increase in weight loss and lean muscle mass there was when you were on the turnaround program, especially when it's combined with exercise, but how much better it was even than exercise alone. Okay, click.
So supplementation can help diabetics address these issues. And we've kind of already talked about these, but just to reinforce it, it will help with symptoms that are caused by elevated blood levels of glucose and fat, insulin resistance and free radical production, and the health consequences of really not supplementing is, staggering: heart disease, stroke, kidney disease, nerve damage, poor circulation, blindness, arthritis. And it's, you can just see where these things all kind of get tied together, and inflammation certainly is a really big one. And I just want to mention here, too, we have a Shaklee master coordinator here in Minneapolis, Emmert Rasmussen, who has the same results that Jackie did. He has been a diabetic for 50 years, and he just recently, I think it was last year, received a medal from the National Diabetic Association or something for being a diabetic for 50 years and being virtually almost symptom-free, but not having...
Yeah,
not having any of these health consequences. So there's
same as Jackie, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
I wonder if they're going to finally take a look and wonder why those people are doing so well.
Right.
It might be because diabetics benefit from supplementation in 3 areas, especially when there's Shaklee products. Well, the trace minerals, one of the things that happens for a diabetic is they lose that much more chromium in the urine
Sure.
along with that glucose. And 35% of diabetics are deficient in it. And it's needed to reduce your insulin resistance. It helps improve blood sugar control, and it decreases free radical production, which is so important. And magnesium, 35 to 40% are deficient in that. And that helps regulate the blood sugar levels. It helps reduce the LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, and blood pressure. And vanadium helps liver utilize the glucose, lowers the blood sugar level, and lowers total and the LDL cholesterol. And zinc, of course, for immunity. Well, think of this. That's all in the Shaklee glucose regulation complex and in the Vitalizer. All those important nutrients. And those, we're going to talk about the antioxidants in just a minute, but those nutrients that reduce inflammation, Omega Guard, Barb's going to talk about a little bit more in just a bit, I think. We're going to talk about GLA and Vivix. All of those important because, remember, all the things we've talked about when you reduce inflammation. Okay, Barb? Okay, so diabetics also have this increased need for antioxidants. One of the reasons why is the altered metabolism that diabetics have, which results in excessive generation of the free radicals. And again, free radicals are something very unhealthy for us, which lead to a lot of other health issues. It can even be cancer as well. And diabetics have increased levels of lipid peroxides in their membranes, oxidative adducts in their DNA, and carbonyl radicals in their proteins. I know that's a lot more technical than we probably ever have to become.
It just means they're a mess.
But it's just to let you know a lot of problems there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And the free radical damage is thought to be responsible for a lot of those diabetic complications that we've talked about. You've heard these, 4 or 5 times tonight. So isn't it nice to know we're going to continue on with great answers like Vitalizer and Vivix and Chronomex, Flavomex, vitamin C, vitamin E. You know, Dr. Shaklee used to say, just eat the smorgasbord. And, you know, when you do that, you're really protected on all ends. And a lot of that is right in that Vitalizer today.
And not to make light of diabetes, you know, that wasn't what I intended, because these are really serious, serious health ramifications. But what is so encouraging is that we've got products that make such a difference for people.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you emphasized that because we certainly weren't trying to treat it lightly by any means.
No.
And the alpha-lipoic acid and glucose regulation complex, again, is in that product. And, okay, click. It's a very important antioxidant, particularly valuable for diabetics. And it helps enhance the glucose uptake by these cells. And it's been used for more than 30 years in Germany for treatment of diabetic neuropathy, which is one of the things we just said was a serious problem. Continue. Thank you. Clinical studies show that alpha-lipoic acid supplementation improves the insulin sensitivity. It improves the glucose utilization by obese and diabetic patients. So any of us over more weight than we choose to be certainly benefit us as well. And decreasing the cataract formation, the vascular damage, the neuropathy. So again, like Joe said, we have some great answers. And the other important nutrients, so many of them are in glucose regulation complex, like taurine, which is a naturally occurring amino acid. It functions as an antioxidant in the body, a calcium modulator, and a vasodilator. And high blood sugar causes taurine depletion. So obviously we want to be able to replace that. And diabetic neuropathy correlates with the taurine depletion. So in other words, if somebody is depleted, they're more likely to have that diabetic neuropathy. But again, you're going to be able to get it in the glucose regulation complex. And clinical studies are suggesting that that kind of supplementation with taurine may actually help prevent diabetic neuropathy and other complications. So not just treating it, but helping prevent it, better yet, right? And the banaba leaf extract, which is 1% you pronounce it colosylic acid, I guess.
Yep.
It's a phytonutrient that, again, is in glucose regulation complex. It helps remove that excess glucose from the circulation. So, again, yeah, go ahead.
As you were going through this, Anna, the thought just struck me. I was just thinking, oh, I am so thankful for Shaklee and the staff of scientists and researchers that they have, because the average person, how do you don't know all of this, and it's really hard to even be aware of it. But yet Shaklee, because the products are grounded in sound science, they put the things in the products that are so critically necessary, and we don't have to try to figure it out on our own.
That's such a great point, because our products are what we call proprietary blends. They find the nutrients that work the very best together to give us the highest results.
Well, and we wanted to mention that many of you have heard us speak of a landmark study that was done in 2007 that compared a large group, 300 people who had been using Shaklee products for over 20 years. They were on average about 10 years older than the other populations that they were being compared to, people who took no vitamins versus those who just took a multivitamin. And what was so amazing is if you look at, we just pulled a couple of the charts of the results from that, but there was something like a 73% lower incidence of diabetes in the Shaklee population than in the others. It was just astounding. Mm-hmm. And so you can see Shaklee is the green one, had the green stripe there, but also that was true with heart attacks as well. And so the reason that we want to show you a bit of the science tonight is to help you understand where diabetes comes from and understand how dramatically connected our diets are to diabetes, and that this is something that we absolutely can control. And to show you the science of why we are recommending the products that we do for, which we'll give you a little summary slide in just a second, and then to show you that how the research has shown, this was done by an independent study at University of California at Berkeley, and to show you that the actual results, how it shows just in these two parameters. There are many others, of course, that they measured. Go ahead and click, Joe.
But do you notice, too, though, that the users of other supplements, other brands, actually had higher incidence than people who took nothing?
And it's important to note that the users of the Shaklee supplements weren't spring chickens either. They were people in their 60s.
Right. I think the average age was 63, I think.
Yeah.
Cool. And so then Omega Guard, mentioned this earlier, but it reduces inflammation. And so you want to click again, Joe, I think that'll come up. Is that this is, so you remember how there's some of the issues are around the bloodstream, the circulation, the fat deposit. These are the ones that Omega Guard helps to reduce. So it's a tremendously important nutrient for diabetics. I just want to mention fish oil is real trendy right now. You've got to be really careful about fish oils. There's so little regulation of the vitamin industry, and Dr. Daggy, who is the Chief Scientific Officer, was at a conference that we attended this past weekend in Chicago, and he was just telling us just how difficult it is for the consumer to know. About 30% of fish oil products do not, according to a Consumer Labs report, don't meet their standards of what's on the label being consistent with what's in the capsule, and contain lots of contaminants, from PCBs to heavy metals to dioxins. And so it's just comforting and important to know that Shaklee products he's very proud of this product, because he said it is purified to a pharmaceutical grade, and he said they do so many tests on this product that would detect even up to 2 parts per trillion if there were any of the PCBs or dioxin present. Go ahead and click, Joe. Okay.
So just quickly to review type 2 diabetes, it's serious. It's overwhelming. It's an epidemic. We need to focus on this, and we need to be aware of it. It's highly associated with obesity and inactivity, so that gives us a clue as to what we need to do. And then diets high in sugar and carbohydrates. And most overweight people are at a risk for developing diabetes. They're likely to be insulin resistant, may not have any symptoms because their blood sugar might be normal, but it doesn't mean that things are normal for them, and they're at a high risk of heart attack, stroke, and diabetes. So diet and lifestyle changes are more effective than drug therapy for type 2 diabetes. Weight control and exercise are most important. Types of food are actually more important than the percent of fat, and supplementation can and does contribute to blood sugar control, and it helps reduce complications.
And I just want to underline what you just said is that we're grateful for medications, but all medications have a toxic side effect. And my goal is always to get the body so healthy that there's no need for the medication. And look at and Steve made this slide about from the research he did when he says diet and lifestyle changes are more effective than drug therapy for type 2 diabetes. That is a powerful statement.
Yeah.
And so just be aware that when you start going through this program, your body responds sometimes very quickly. So be sure and monitor your blood sugars because you may need to reduce your medication and many times even eliminate it. So you do that with your doctor, of course, but it's a wonderful thing, when people just turn it all around. It's just a terrific thing. Go ahead, Joe.
And type 1 diabetes, type 1 diabetics share many of the same health consequences as type 2, but they also need protein to stabilize their blood sugar. They need the trace minerals to prevent insulin resistance. Remember, that was a big thing. And then the antioxidants to prevent free radical damage and inflammation. And so glucose regulation complex contains key herbs that they needed, the lipoic acid
you're good.
to improve glucose utilization, and then taurine to prevent diabetic neuropathy, and the banaba leaf. I'm sorry.
This is a challenge tonight. Yeah.
to remove excess glucose from the circulation. So again, there just are some very simple things we can do here with supplementation.
So if you, as a place to start, would be Vitalizer. There's 80 essential nutrients in there. A lot of the antioxidants that we just talked about. And then once you click again, Joe, do that. And then the one that we have not talked about yet, go ahead, and you have the omegas in there as well, go ahead. And then the next one is what we haven't talked about yet is Vivix. And Hannah, go ahead.
Well, Vivix is so important. I think that it is a product that is such a must. And sometimes people say, well, it's the costliest product you have. That may be true, but it's cost versus value. Because when you realize that this has changed people's lives in so many ways for so many different types of ailments, but when we're talking specifically tonight, of course, about diabetes, because not only does it have the resveratrol, but the polyphenols in the Vivix as well. They're all excellent antioxidants. They reduce oxidative damage to the body, which, of course, in oxidation, one of the things oxidation does can cause cancer, and one of the other things oxidative damage can do is, oh gosh, that just went right out of my head. It'll come back maybe. But one of the other benefits is that it increases the number and activity of the mitochondria. Mitochondria are those little finger-like kind of things in our cells that really provide the energy production in the cells. And to be able to have something that can increase that number and get them more active again is so important. And this also decreases both the insulin resistance and the inflammation. So we have found that people that are diabetic that are on Vivix really see tremendous results. Don't you agree?
I had one of our friends was a type 1 diabetic, and she was an older woman. And she said when Vivix came out, she started taking it, and she already had experienced a lot of kidney problems. And she said that she was starting to get better kidney function. after being on the Vivix. She noticed, and it's interesting that when Vivix came out, this is the resveratrol product, that the three things that they told us there was research around. One was the brain and the mind, and one was diabetes, and the other was cancer. So they're looking at all of those things around it because antioxidants help to repair the inflammation within the cells. So remarkable product for diabetics.
Yeah.
Okay, click, Joe. And here's our basic program all in one slide for you. So if I were a diabetic and I was just starting, or if I was pre-diabetic, the first thing I would reach for is the Shaklee 180, the whole program, to help me get back to a healthy weight. I would do 2 meal replacements a day and then add the 6 vegetables a day, making homemade soups and main dish salads and stir fry, and just really learning how to incorporate more vegetables into our diet. And I get the challenge of that, but it's so critically important. Our bodies, human body was really made to eat whole, natural, live food that grows out of the earth. And then Vitalizer. If you just even started with those two things, you would probably start to notice a difference. People notice a difference with Vitalizer. Usually they report energy improvement even in 1 to 2 weeks. Vivix then to begin to repair the cells and help stabilize a lot of the blood sugar that we talked about earlier. And then the Shaklee glucose regulation complex, that simple program. Then if you want to add additional Omega Guard, which I would certainly recommend, you can take that in addition to what you get in the Vitalizer. And then you have all the smoothies and the bars, and you can have those for the whole weight loss program, or you can buy them individually and you can use them just for healthy snacks. So when you're on the road, so you're not tempted to go into fast food restaurants, you're not tempted to eat carby, snacky, chippy, salty stuff. You know, you have good, healthy things around so you can make good, healthy choices. And with that, it is a wrap. Thanks, Joe.
Nice. Thank you. We've got questions. Let's see. I just read that some people can confuse diabetes symptoms with the flu when that happens around the holidays, of course, with all the sugar and alcohol. That can be pretty sobering.
Oh, huh. I see here, there was one that says, my mom started on 180 in July, dropped about 15 pounds. Blood sugars went from 140 to 160 to 90 to 100. Isn't that great?
Wow.
And she was able to drop that. Come on in. She was able to drop her medication. Oh, this is great. By 1/4. First time sugars this low. That's really great to hear in 30 years. That's great.
And to get a copy of these slides, they're going to be posted at betterhealthin31days.com, right, Barb?
Yes, indeed. After I clean them up, you can see I missed my airplane last night because of the tornadoes, and so I apologize if we had some duplication in the slides because I was trying to do them in the airplane, and
I think that
had
was
some challenges.
I might have.
It's okay.
How about using frozen vegetables instead of fresh?
Well, that's better than a cracker. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, but you know, I mean, it's good. I mean, I get that people are working and buying fresh. I get it. You got to buy them, wash them, clean them, cut them up, do stuff. I totally understand that. So yes, you know, frozen is okay. You know, it's fresh is always the best, but you know, do what you can. Yeah, do what you can.
And frozen's a lot better than canned for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And someone asked about vitamin D. Absolutely, you can make a case for so many of the nutrients, and so we wanted you get some vitamin D in that Vitalizer. I mean, that's why Jackie showed you all the supplements that she takes, because look how well she is doing, and she's in her 60s. So it's just it's just so easy to take for someone. It's easy to take a vitamin. And then begin making one change in the diet at a time.
Right. The difference between glucose regulation complex and metabolic boost?
Yeah, well, there is some Monopoly. Yes, they're similar. You're right. There's a few more things in the glucose regulation complex, all those trace minerals, for example. But the metabolic boost has the EGCG in it that helps increase the metabolism by 30%. But it has the Monopoly extract in it that helps with the insulin resistance, helps the cells open and receive the insulin and the glucose when it comes. So yes, they're similar. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. And again, is this recorded someplace, and where are the slides available? And that's betterhealthin31days.com. So that's a wrap. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening.
Good. Okay. Yes, we have so many questions here. Okay, so and I hope the one question about new folks who are starting, that program in front of us is just a very simple place to start. The Shaklee 180s and the Vitalizer is a very good place to start.
Right. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight.
Good
okay,
night.
We'll
Thank
see
you all.
And next week, what is that, Joe? Next week, Inside the World of Shaklee?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
That's the overview of all that Shaklee has to offer people, from our philosophy and our history to products to the opportunity. So
super.
Good.
Yeah, that's great. So that's a wonderful session to invite new members to, just to tell you a little bit more about background about Shaklee, and we cover a lot more products in that too. Good. See you then. Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Thanks, Jackie.